You have probably noticed by now that I despise bandwagons, and yet from time to time I am called upon to discuss them. The Ukraine. That is the current cause, that is the current crusade. Let's all rally around the flag and support the Ukraine. This is the battle cry. And we are hearing it the loudest from people who, a few weeks ago, most likely had probably never even heard of the Ukraine. Now, this makes me all the more hesitant to share something with you, which I nevertheless can assert is patently true. You see, the fact of the matter is, I more or less always did support the Ukraine, all along. Now, I realize saying, I support the Ukraine, is the thing to do these days, but herein and again, I am speaking with sincerity. You see, like a lot of you, I've had to sit back and watch the Ukraine serve as a doormat for the Soviet Union and Poland and all those other countries over there over the years. Just by virtue of it being an underdog, this lends to a degree of sympathy and support. Now, in the current conflagration, there are 5 points which assert themselves in a very direct, no-frills way in which we in turn can engage this entire affair. Here they are for you to consider. The first one entails a variable which unfortunately appears to have reared its head again. It's something which has come up in conversation from time to time, particularly if I am having the conversation with those punks and skins who worship the hammer and sickle. Well, how could you possibly support the Ukraine? Don't you know that that's a hotbed of neo-national socialism and white supremacy, of anti-Semitism and pseudo-fascism? The Ukraine are the bad guys. How could anyone in good conscience support them? For the 100,000th time, the troubles in the Ukraine predate all of that. It goes so much further back in time by generations. It predates the war and the Third Reich and the tainted swastika and that which you understand fascism to be. But since you brought it up, do you happen to recollect back during the war when the Jerry were marching through the Ukraine in order to get to the Soviet Union? Do you remember the way the Ukrainians reacted to this? Were they cowering in terror? No. They were dancing in the streets. They were singing and celebrating. They hailed the Krauts as liberators. Champagne and bouquets of roses for the stormtroopers. Now, mind you, that euphoria was very short-lived. They realized that they were trading one form of tyranny for another. But nevertheless, this doesn't speak very well for the Russo-Soviet presence in that area. But, given that, I'm not even going to say supposing that, given that these factions do exist in the Ukraine, which they no doubt do, why wouldn't they? They exist in so many other quarters of the world. Given that they exist, nevertheless, the current issue at hand is the Russian encroachment upon the Ukraine. That brings us to the second point. Within the Ukraine, are there any groups, are there any elements, are there any factions, are there any citizens at all who approve of what the Russians are doing, who support the Russian invasion, who are in favor of the Russian effort? Any at all? Are there any Ukrainians standing out there in the streets in the same way that they greeted the Krauts as conquering heroes, who are waving in the Ivans as liberators? Any Ukrainians at all? Now, I don't know the answer to that. I'm not posing this to you rhetorically. I am putting the question to you. You tell me. That brings us to the third point. What exactly is the Russian objective? Has it been stated? Has it been clarified? Has it even been declared? What is it they're hoping to accomplish? Occupation, annexation, conquest? I mean, we can probably guess what they want to do, but what is the blanket statement? What is the overall objective? Do we even know? This brings us to the fourth point. Again, like the bandwagons, you've probably noticed that I don't have much use for opinions. However, if I were compelled to seek out anyone's perspective herein, there is a contingency which I would consult. I realize it's an outmoded school of thought. It's one that's usually dealt with in terms of mockery, and scorn, and ridicule. Especially nowadays, when the younger you are, the more that you know, the smarter you are. Boys and girls, punks and skins, elder statesmen and elder stateswomen exist for a reason. Wisdom and experience. If I were called upon to consult anyone at all in this matter, I would be very interested in sitting down and talking to, but more to the point, listening to, the former Soviet Premier, Mikhail Gorbachev, and his wife, Mrs. Gorbachev, the former First Lady of Mother Russia. I would be interested in sitting down with them and listening to what they would have to say about this entire affair, because I can almost promise you that they would have some very enlightening insights to share. What's that? The hammer and sickle crews amongst the punks and the skins don't like Gorbachev? They don't trust him? And they kind of sort of blame him for the dissolution of the Soviet Union? That's all the more reason to listen to him. And now the fifth and final point. The put up or the shut up of the matter. Very shortly, the entire world will probably witness a tidal wave of refugees, of immigrants, of Ukrainian expatriates seeking political asylum in all the quarters of the world, including the United States of America. Talking the talk and walking the walk. Are you prepared for this? Are you in fact going to stand shoulder to shoulder with Lady Liberty and in fine American tradition hold open the door? Oh, we've seen all of this before. It sounds good. It's pleasing to the ear. At least wait until the novelty wears off. Goes all the way back to the Jewish diaspora. You're welcome at first, until it becomes an inconvenience, an imposition. As I say, we've seen it before. Do you remember the Afghani refugees back in the 60s and the welcome wagon which awaited them? You remember all of the brutalized families fleeing Vietnam and Southeast Asia back in the 70s? And do you remember the way we rolled out the red carpet for all of them? Yeah, we've seen this before time and time again. So, are you prepared to walk the walk? You say that you are. Let's support the Ukraine. We have the Ukrainians back. We're going to give them the shirt off of ours. You say that. And it sounds good, but I submit to you, the Ukrainians are real living people, real blood and real tears. They are not a movie of the week. You say you have their back? Prove it!